Hey you! Yeah, you. Imagine if I were to toss you a banana and tell you it's a person. Yup, his name's Gerard and he's got feelings too, you know. No more of any of this slipping on bananas cartoon stuff. Gerard might be a banana, but he's a person. Don't be stepping on him, that's murder. What would you be thinking? Well, probably...
You're insane.
No, I'm not crazy, thank you. But I'm trying to make a point here. I say this with all due respect. I'm Catholic, but going to Mass is just hard. I'm supposed to wrap my head around the fact that that's bread, but it's also Jesus. Again, with all due respect, that's just hard. Looks like bread, feels like bread, tastes like bread. So how do we know it's Jesus?
You should probably look into Lanciano.
Lanciano?
Yeah, Lanciano, Italy. It's a town where there was a priest who doubted his faith and if God was really there in the Eucharist. It didn't seem real to him. He wanted to believe. He even prayed to God to believe, but still it just looked and felt like bread. He struggled with this for a while, until finally one morning, while celebrating Mass, after saying the words of consecration, he saw the bread turn into flesh, and the wine into blood, the flesh and blood of Jesus. But you'll stop me and say,
Sure, that happened that one time in Lanciano, but that was way back in 700 AD. It's not like they had modern science back then.
okay, and maybe they didn't have modern science back then, but we do today. And that same host and blood they had kept all those years, and in 1970 they did examine it. It was by Dr. Edoardo Lanoli, an anatomical pathologist, and Professor Ruggero Bertelli, a professor in anatomy. After conducting extensive scientific studies on it, what they had to say was,
"The blood of the Eucharistic miracle is true human blood, and the flesh is true human flesh made of human heart tissue."
The structure of the flesh does not lend itself to the hypothesis of a fake specimen crafted in previous centuries with bad intentions.
Blood from a corpse typically undergoes rapid decay.
However, even with no salts or preservatives found, somehow the blood was still inexplicably present and not fully decomposed.
Well, granted, that happened over 1,000 years ago. But what about today?
to see that, you're gonna have to hop on a plane from Italy all the way to Poland. We're going now to two towns, one called Sokolka and the other called Legnica. In both of these places, in 2013 and 2008, there were local parishes where consecrated hosts were found accidentally dropped on the ground during Mass. Now, when this happens, what the church says to do is place the dirtied host in water, allow it to dissolve, then dump the water into the ground where it can be properly disposed of. They did this in the Polish parishes, but something happened. Instead of just dissolving, the hosts had something red forming on them. The host dissolved, but the red substance remained. They took it out from the water, placed it on a cloth, realizing that what was happening might be a miracle. In Sokolka, utter secrecy was taken to examine the substance to the point where the origins of it were kept a secret to one of the scientists studying it. In Legnica, a committee of 4 experts were gathered by the bishop to study the substance. In both instances, they found human heart tissue attached to the host in an inexplicable way. The scientists deemed the tissue found was not only human heart tissue, but it possessed characteristics of a heart which had truly suffered, one which had undergone both stress and trauma.
Like someone else we know.
Which brings us to a good moment to stop and say, this same Jesus that was found in Poland and Italy is the same Jesus which we find here at Damascus in your parish. That when the priest makes the words of consecration over the bread and wine, they do in fact become his body and blood. That you get to experience this same miraculous Jesus when you receive communion or are with him in adoration. He gives us these miracles to remind us that he is actually there. I want to stress another important point. What is a saint? Simply an ordinary person with extraordinary faith. What about each of you sitting at CYSC right now? You're ordinary people too. But think about it. If Jesus can be present in a piece of bread, one of the simplest foods we have, bread, how much more do you think he can do in you? His son and daughter, someone wholly unique with a voice, a face, a personality unlike anyone else. You are capable of extraordinary faith, and you are able to be a saint. You can do it. So, when you look at the Eucharist next time, I ask you to reconsider. Is it really just bread?